Welcome to the Hobby Hour with myself, Stuart, and my good friend Dan. It's episode 8, and today we're mostly going to be talking about the old world news. Hi, Dan. How's things? Dragged you in on a Sunday lunchtime to do a bit of an emergency record here. How have you been?
Well, you say emergency. Should we say use the other E word? An excited, emphatic, enthusiastic record. Yes, all good. Thank you. All good. Just finishing up a week off, so the Sunday dread's not quite kicked in yet for return to work tomorrow, but otherwise it's been quite good. Well, that's work, isn't it? But it's been nice to spend some time off, rest and recuperate. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, actually. I probably had a little bit too much wine last night, so my eyes might look a bit. Oh, there is when you got kids, believe me.
You're upright. You're doing fine.
It was my turn for a lie-in this morning, which did help a little bit. But about 11 o'clock, I was sitting on the toilet, planning the notes for this record, and I thought, my eyes red and running, and I thought this needs to stop before we sit down and record, or I'm going to look even worse than normal. But I'm almost there. I've had a couple of coffees, I've had some water, I've had a banana, and some lovely chocolate marble cake that my 8-year-old made yesterday. It's actually edible. Good. And so that was breakfast of champions. I will. It's nice to sit in a quiet house now because the kids are out. Sit and talk about toy soldiers with you for a bit. It'll be really, really good. So let's talk a little bit about some of the news since we've last recorded. So we've obviously had Warhammer Day yesterday at time of recording. Yes. So we're going to leave the chatter about the old world to its main segment at the end. So we're obviously not going to mention that now. But there was a couple of extra things as part of that reveal that I quite like the look of. I thought it'd be fun to talk about. Yep. Did you see the big beastie dragon thing for the Stormcast?
But they put a chaplain on it. I'm not sure why.
I did wonder. And my youngest came up to me when I was watching that on my iPad, because obviously I couldn't have it on the main telly. That had to be Power Rangers. But so I was watching it on my iPad, and my youngest said, "It's a bad man." And I was like, "Oh, technically, he's maybe not a bad man." He said, "No, do I need to try and explain Stormcast Eternals to a 4-year-old? No." But I'm really impressed with that model, at least the dragon anyway. Really, really nice. And I can imagine that might be used for a conversion at some point for potential old world armies that have dragons, if dragons aren't available. But I really liked it. I don't know if you felt the same. But
it the dragon's beautiful. Parts of the rider are really nice. I'm a little past done on skull face plates, if I'm honest with you. It's a little trite. But what I do like about it is it shows the maturing of Age of Sigmar, because as they explained in the preview, and for those who didn't watch it, that's a redo of a model that was in the first Age of Sigmar box set, I believe.
Right.
He was in there on foot. I think he had a skull on a stick. He had a skeleton in a box or whatever it was. But the fact that they've obviously the models improved the level of detail and stuff, even from whatever edition of Age of Sigmar we are on now, how far forward it's come is awesome. But two, the fact they're actually maturing their lore, they're progressing characters within the lore now. We've reached that point now where more established characters in the lore are receiving a bit of development and stuff, which I think is really cool. It shows that what people accuse Age of Sigmar of being a fad is not the case. And
it's huge. it's huge.
Yeah. But the dragon itself, it's stunning, and the paint job on it's really pretty. Really, really crazy pretty, actually. When they started zooming in on sort of the scales and stuff, and how much the eye more than anything else caught me. The blue, that was very cool.
Yeah, they've done a great job with that game, like it or loathe it. And I really like the look of it. I just prefer.
It's got the best model.
I prefer the old world style fantasy. Doesn't mean I'll never give it a go, especially now there's a Sigmar Rangers there. There's some beautiful miniatures there. Just haven't got, as much as I do a lot of games I don't have time for. The pull isn't enough for it that I make time for it, but it is not something that I'll definitely say I'd never do in the future. And what they've done with it as a very unique property, which was part of the idea of it in the first place, unique IP. It's really, really impressive. I mean, one of the other things, I've not put it on the list of things to talk about, but the basically tree men riding the giant bugs from Starship Troopers, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That's what it looked like. But I mean, it's
mandible-y
crazy.
bits. Yeah,
Yeah, the beautiful models, quite crazy, but that shows that where that game has gone, and the freedom of making up their own IP in that way by creating Age of Sigmar has allowed them to do that. And they're just, they're leading the, as much as I get people who don't like Games Workshop or don't like Age of Sigmar aren't going to like to hear it, they're leading that high fantasy market. They're so far ahead of anyone else.
and
And it's
the
brilliant.
sculpt is bonkers. The thing that struck me with that actually was the paint job. I wouldn't even know how to approach painting that model. I really wouldn't, apart from just doing the entire thing in OSL, big glum bum. It does look a bit like a
Yes.
firefly as well.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, that's I suppose that's the one thing is it's talked about quite a lot, isn't it? About the level of detail on some of these miniatures, and whether it's too much to handle at times. I don't know. I think it helps with a lot of detail if you're not too fussed about painting it all and you're happy to use contrast and things and get gaming miniatures on the table. I think it's really, really good. But if you're a painter, and you don't have to be a tournament level kind of winning painter even, or a competition painter, which is probably the word I was searching for, to paint well enough that you want to paint all the details and make them look good, then it starts becoming really time consuming with those kind of sculpts. Not complaining about it, but it's definitely a consideration, isn't it, sometimes? And I'll look at models and just think, God, so I'll get a commission request and someone, I send back a pricing and people are like, well, that's quite a lot to paint, but look what I've got to do. And it's just, it's not even, sometimes the length of time something takes is so high, and it's not even about it being a high skill level of painting. It's just because the pure amount of extra stuff that you've got to paint. So yeah, that's my only concern with all these beautiful sculpts is how you put them together as well. Sometimes it can be a bloody nightmare to build, and painting is a problem. But anyway, we're kind of digressing quite a lot already, which is often the way. But I was impressed by them. And then the other thing, those striking scorpions.
They are cool.
Very,
it's
very
nice
cool.
to see new Eldar, and they are Eldar. I don't care what they say, not Eldari.
Yes,
not in for
Eldar,
copywriting reasons. It's Eldar, and it's nice to see more miniatures. Obviously, they've done the Banshees, they've done the Dark Reapers, they've now done the Scorpions. So the poor maligned Warp Spider's probably the oldest miniature in 40k range at the moment. That's in active service. They need doing, especially the X arc for those was always really cool. There's always a really good piece of art that was done for that. Fire Dragons need redoing, don't they? But I suppose you could use the new Guardians as a basis for that.
You could.
Same with the Dire Avengers.
They've redone the Guardian. Yeah. See, I think we both talked about this, that how tempting they are. And again, this isn't about playing 40k as such, but I've got a project in mind that it's probably a video as well, to be honest with you, because I think it'll be a fun, big project video. But I would love to, using all the new sculpts, try and recreate the armies from that Robin Jews era of White Dwarf. So the studio army, the blue. Which craft world was it? Blue with the yellow helmets, Guardians, and then you had a couple of units of Guardians, and then you had almost a unit of each.
I want to say that's a Laytok, but I can't.
Yeah, I think so as well. I was just hoping that you were going to say that and pronounce it right, so I didn't mess it up. So we're going to go with that.
I think it's a Laytok because it's Biel-Tan was the aspect.
Yes,
craft world.
It's not Biel-Tan.
Same Han is Wind Riders. Ulfway's obviously witches. So I think it's a Laytok because it's the Ghost Warriors.
Got this, there's nagging there to I don't, not a huge points worth of army, because I imagine if you just get a couple of units of Guardians and each of one of the aspect warriors, that you're probably only going to get to 1,000 points or so, but that might be all I need.
The new Rangers are really nice as well.
Painting project at some point next year.
They're a painter's army of all of the armies in 40k, and there's going to be people who disagree with this, but they're wrong. Eldar are the painter's army of 40k. Every high-end painter I've ever really seen has always held a special place in their heart for the Eldar. Andy Wardle's doing bits and pieces for them. He's doing a really nice Ulfway force, and
well, I'll be trying to do it as a trying to find, well, I'd be cracking out the zenith and the contrast again and trying to find a way of using the methods that I use for army painting for it. But it's a project that really tempts me. It's a bit of a kind of extension of a nostalgia project, but using all the new models.
And
I
you get to
think
paint
it
your
would be
avatar
really
as
fun.
well.
I've never painted an avatar. So watch this space. I might do that in the future, just to, well, yeah, whether I ever play a game with it, I don't know, but it would be really, really fun. Really, really fun. But anyway, other than that, is there anything that struck you aside from the old world from Warhammer Day? Anything you wanted to mention before I blather around about other game systems and things?
Well, some of it we'd already seen, like the scouts and stuff. I thought it was just quite overwhelmingly positive. I think the reaction from the community was quite positive. There's
Yes,
naturally going to be naysayers, and there's always been people who are crying about they haven't got this, that, and the other. I usually turn the comments off on the side, but I've subsequently been, as you do, you go on Twitter and you take Twitter obviously with a pinch of salt, but there were other people whinging. Apparently, someone was saying, "What, no Krieg?" I wasn't under the impression that the Krieg were even teased or even spoken about.
No.
There's always a funny phenomenon with, and it's not entirely down to just hobbyists, but we're terrible for it.
I think there are rumors about Krieg, aren't they?
Well, yeah, but
and the rumors that they're bringing out because the rumor I heard, and I might have even heard it on the painting phase actually, I don't know, but someone said, and I've watched it online somewhere other than Reddit, that the resin Krieg is
being redone.
It's got to be removed because the molds are too dead, etc., etc. So they're looking at, because it's a popular range, and because they brought out other stuff for it now, since haven't they, newer resins that they need to replace the standard. And I just thought, well, surely just bring out the stuff that's in Kill Team separately, which they've already done, haven't they?
Surely, yes, yeah, that's been available for ages.
Maybe they'll make that multi-part if it isn't already. I don't know. I've never built it.
Yeah, it's a very multi-part kit. That kit's amazing.
So maybe they just need to repackage that as a box with some weapons teams or something like that. I can imagine that being a good. Let's face it, that will sell, won't it? If you
of course
repackage that, and they might even redo them completely, resculpt them, because it's been a few years now. Resculpt them, and
the scale's massively off anyway. But
so that might be what they do. So they match the new guard range, but maybe that's what it is. Maybe people are expecting
recently, and they've not been teased any of the images.
No.
We have a habit as a community, I think, sometimes of establishing our own expectations and then blaming GW when our own personal expectations are not alluded to, are not unmatched.
We may have discussed this as a previous topic before on the show. So if it's your first one, we look a couple of episodes back, and we do talk about this a little bit. Yeah,
it is crazy that people have an expectation that the thing that they do personally, this converted army that I do, they're not releasing official models for it. I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? But it's been overwhelmingly positive, which is nice. I've not really seen the usual level of diatribe and misery that you usually get out of these things. So that's always a nice thing.
It has been good. I haven't looked for it though. I haven't been, we'll talk about the old world later, but in terms of the reaction to it, I've only looked at sort of the YouTube or the Instagram reactions to it and the Twitter reactions. I've not read the Facebook comments on all the people that would have shared that. I've not bothered, because I know there would have been the people that like it will hit like, and then there'll be the comments will be the people, well, I don't like these helmets, or I don't like that, and I'm not interested because it doesn't make any difference.
There has been a couple of comments, but then predominantly old world, and we'll cover that in a bit.
Yeah. What else? So there's a few other things I thought I'd mention. So we don't just always talk about GW in the news, considering that I do a lot more than just GW stuff. So Battlefront have just released their NATO forces. That came out on the 7th. And the reason I mentioned that is because they I've got them behind me. They sent me some bits ahead of launch. And I've done a couple of videos already painting the NATO. I was tasked with painting Belgium's, which just basically is NATO anyway. So but I don't have any decals for them or anything like that. I don't think we really have that much in the way of marking. So I've done a couple of videos for those. And this coming week, as you're watching this, this week, as you're watching this, there should be the infantry tutorial. That's the end of those sort of three little things. But thank you to Battlefront for sending me those things. It's quite nice to get some early access to bits and bobs. I think the plastic tank models were already out anyway, but I think the inventory were new. And I've had a look through the book. I don't play Team Yankee, and not something I'm looking to get into at the moment. I've got too many other things. I think for their products. I'll keep playing Flames of War. Yeah, it was nice to get early access to the rules and have a flick through the PDF and things. It's quite cool. And then Warlord kind of pushed out their Case Blue bolt action stuff at the moment. So that seems to be their latest thing. Lots of bolt action plastic French. And I've actually got some here. Have I just doxed myself by showing my address on the screen? Well, hopefully I wheeled it around too much. I might have to blank that out. But
I didn't catch it. I think it'll be all right.
Someone can pause it. I'll put a little flag over it or something. But yeah, I'm finding the time to do it really. So whether I'll get a video out before people receive their orders and things, I don't know. But I have a few frames of the new plastic French infantry.
If anyone can do it, you can do it.
So I will do a little video on them, and I will paint one and do a bit of a tutorial for it as well as part of the video. So you can look out for that in the next couple of weeks or so. Whether it's out before the people's miniatures turn up, I don't know. It's just time, and that balancing videos that I've planned and then videos that are opportunity ones like that, which I love painting different stuff, and I really want that on the channel. I love the wide range of different stuff. But some stuff just turns up and I'm like, oh, okay. It's like the review I did for with Hot Lead and Cold Steel, which is I knew it was coming, but I didn't know when I was going to get my book. And Arthur's such a great bloke, and I really wanted to make sure that I got the video out as soon as possible and did a good job of describing the rules for people, really. Luckily, they're incredibly well written and really easy to follow. And it's one of those sets of rules. And you know me, I'm not a rulesy kind of person, but it's one of those sets of rules. You read the book cover to cover, and I had a really good grasp of. I felt like I could have gone and played a game. And quite often, I can read some rules and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to need to work through this turn by turn to get my head around it. But that I felt like, yeah, I could probably go and play a game of this now. So they're well worth it. If you play American Civil War, definitely check those rules out as well. You'll be able to find the review on the channel. It's an Osprey release, and I think it's out on the 26th of October, so it's still a couple of weeks before it's out, but you can definitely pre-order it. So there's a few different things that not just Warhammer-y stuff. Oh, Ep8 Napoleonic heads as well. They've just teased some more of those. I think they've gone up for pre-order for Warlord Games. So those of you that like my Ep8 tutorials, I don't have any of those. They've not sent me any of those, but they are just sort of some different heads, so you can swap them out to do different things, really. So there's some bear heads, there's some bicorn heads for officers for British infantry, so rather than the shako, so sort of hat like that.
Yeah.
Like a bicorn rather than the shako.
I think it's just occurred to me that you're saying that they've literally done replacement heads for models that size.
Yeah, I know. It's really interesting. Really interesting. I'm way back under a different marketing contact there who doesn't work for them anymore. I mentioned it to them that would it be a good idea ages and ages ago, and he said no, they'll never do it because they're too small. And I think, okay, fair enough, but they've done it. I think it works better with some things than others. I think for swapping out a couple of officers' heads to really change the look of the unit, so then people will say, well, that it works for. It's easy to do Peninsula then if you swap out the officers' heads, even though the shakos are wrong, etc., etc. At that scale, it doesn't matter as much. So I will definitely be picking up a few of those, probably the British officers' heads for a start. I don't know about all of the other things for now, but I'll definitely pick up some British officers' heads for when I do paint some of my units up as Peninsula things. But yeah, and there's loads of other stuff out at the moment. Victrix are putting stuff out all the time. There's loads and loads of cool things coming out. But those are the things that I'm interested in, connected with in one way or another. And I did notice,
stay well away from it when Napoleon drops, because I'll be like, oh, I quite like this, and then no.
Yeah, well, why don't you could probably scratch that itch with the skirmish game.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
We'll talk about that a little bit when I get around to my hobby as well. One other thing, you notice all of the kind of, I don't know if they're leaked or early release pictures of White Dwarf, the next White Dwarf. It looks like there's a battle report for Legions Imperialis in there. And so, is it in the White Dwarf already?
It is in the White Dwarf already.
It's the current one, is it?
Arrived.
Okay, so I need to go and grab that one. Because it looked pretty good. Seeing all of the almost like the makeup of the armies, how you might select an army. So you get a picture of That's it. That's the images I had in my head there. It just gives you a really nice feel for what your
Even
collected
gives you the
army might
points.
look like on the table. How much, sorry?
Even gives you
How
the
many?
points.
Ah. And is that a
And the
standard
actual,
size game, or is that a large or a small game?
I will be honest with you, I have not read it yet, but it's on my list of things to
I did
do.
look at that force and think that's a nice collection of miniatures that I could see painting in a reasonable amount of time.
The Emperor's Children allies for the Death Guard are really cool. They're really pretty.
Nice, yeah.
But there's a really interesting makeup. You've got sort of the Blood Angels, for instance, are made up of like an armored spearhead, then like a Skyhunter phalanx, a Reaver Titan, then the rest of it's all drop pods.
Yeah, this is going to come at a really bad time. Well, whenever it turns up, I'm assuming we're going to see it before Christmas because they kind of hinted at that. But it's going to end up butting it up against old world stuff for me. So I'm probably not going to get quite as much done for it as I wanted to, but I will circle back round to it. Well, we'll talk about this now. I've been listening to the Heresy audios for the Siege of Terror. I left that series. I started listening to them when this was announced. I wanted to leave it to give me I like listening to things at the same time. And I've just got the last trilogy to get through now. And obviously the last trilogy, the last book's not even out. I don't know whether to wait now until that's out.
Well, there's two.
But aren't two of them out?
End of the Death is only the first one of the three.
Only the first one still. So we looked. Have they said how long? Are we talking years off, or are we? No idea. I may wait them. I may wait.
I would assume it's finished. Given that there's a chance, given it was originally supposed to be 2 books, that they already had the manuscript and they've encouraged Dan to do a slight rewrite to spread it across the 2, which may be the case because apparently he put it to bed probably about 2 years ago or 18 months ago, which is why we've had the other book for 9 months, 10 months now.
That's the thing. I want them together. To be fair, now I've got to the stage where I'm ready to read / listen to the first of that. I almost wish I didn't now. But it's a really good place to break it. What I don't want to do, I obviously haven't read it the first of the final trilogy, so I don't know what happens in it. But looking at the way the story has built, this feels like a nice place to rest and wait for all 3 to be out, and then just do them all in all.
Wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, as long as you've caught it. If you catch up all of the short stories and stuff as well, like
that's the thing. I've done everything.
Knight in Grey.
Yeah, absolutely everything else I've done apart from that they've ever done, because I did all of the original book series before as well, dating back over many years. So I am well up.
All that
I stopped buying the physical books. I'll buy about number 14 or something like that.
Every single one except the End of the Death, which I missed. Couldn't get it, which I will not talk about because it still makes me mad even now.
I'm surprised you brought that up.
If you are a scalping bugger, then I can only wish a fiery hell for you. Because you destroyed my collection.
Hopefully you'll get your hands on a copy one day. I'm sure that
I'm not paying 450 quid for it.
I reckon the value will come down.
I'll get rid of mine, to be fair. I'm not that bothered anymore. I've got over it. Mostly I just have a bit of an issue with scalpers.
Yes. I don't mind people selling things for above market value when they've bought it and the market goes up, but when you're buying it deliberately to resell above market value, that's different.
Well, with the exception of a certain prolific fishy related eBay seller.
Yes.
Also, unpleasant individual.
There's a few
if you're
like
watching
that,
this.
There's a few like that. But anyway, let's move on. So what have you been up to, Dan, for your
I've actually done some painting.
You have been, haven't you? You've been busy.
Done some painting. I have painted 3 models this week, which probably doesn't sound like a huge amount to most people, but considering that has pretty much been like that makes up almost a third of my painted models for this year now.
Nice.
I think I painted 8 up to this point, up to this week, 8 or 9, and then now I'm on 12. So that's not too bad. But I painted some more models for my Vampire Counts for Old World, which now, when they're saying very early next year, has put a bit of a time limit on things. I'm not ready, but it's fine. I painted the vampire, which is I think it's Karina von Karstein.
Yeah,
Begins
I'm
with a
going
K
to
anyway.
pretend I know the name. I don't. Yeah.
Carolina. Do you know what? I'm going to double check quickly because it's on my Instagram. Carlina von Karstein.
Colina.
She's the Warhammer Plus exclusive vampire for the
Yes.
coming year. I am lucky. Ben, Mr. Taylor, he does annual subscription, paying front. So he was able to order it. He didn't want it, so I stuffed some money in his hand and said I want that. So I painted that.
Very nice it
Interestingly
is.
enough, to date, I've not seen another painted one, which is really weird.
Yes, good point. Actually,
I've seen some people started them. I've seen plenty of boxes, as you do. You always see boxes online. And I think Ed Barfield started his,
yeah,
but I've not seen a single painted one otherwise. Not
I
finished.
haven't been looking for them as such, but yeah, I've not seen one pop up in my feed on Instagram.
No, I've only seen one
So
of the Cadians done as well, actually, come to think of it.
I don't know if I've seen any of that actually, or I
Yeah,
have, and I've
there's a
scrolled past not painting,
chap
which
on
is totally
Twitter who's done one, and I've forgotten his name. My apologies if you do watch this. Unlikely, but you might. He's done it in red. It's quite nice, actually.
Yeah, I definitely haven't seen
But
it. I remember a red one, I think.
yeah, but yeah, I painted that. And then I did the Crypt Banshee, which was supposed to have been the one I did before anyway, but the vampire arrived. I was like, nah, gotta paint that.
Yeah,
So I
she's
painted.
gorgeous. Well, not gorgeous. She might have been at
No,
some point. It looks like she could do
such a
some
pain.
moisturizer now, but beautiful, beautiful paint job.
Such a pain to photograph though, that model, because of the angles on it. You can't really get it. And I was I made my own life harder by putting dark colors around it. So if you focus on any of those, it
Yeah.
blows the flesh out, and it's
Oh, I think you did a
photographing
good
miniatures is
good
a
job
pain.
painting it and a good job photographing it. Photographing it? Oh my god, what does that mean? So you can tell I drank too much wine last night. Photographing it. A lovely job.
It's thank you. Yeah, she's come out cool. I'm happy with her. Obviously, there will have been images pop up, and as would be no surprise to anyone when you look at my other miniatures I've done for it, there are no bases at the moment because I can't buy any. And I want the official GW ones. I did pick up some third-party ones, but the rounded corners are beginning to annoy me. So I've
Really,
decided I'm
I
just going to
quite like
wait.
my Hobby Heaven ones. They're all right. They're all right.
Yeah, I want square edge proper GW ones for it. So I'll wait, and then I'll yeah, lube up for how much that's going to cost. So moving on, I literally finished this morning the skeleton captain from the Curse City box. I'm going to use him as a unit filler. So I decided on a whim to start him yesterday and finish him this morning. So yeah,
It does look very cool. Are you going to crack on with the bulk of the troops soon, or have you got other projects?
I have. I don't know if it will actually appear properly on screen. I've got Spady McZombie face to do. This
Baby
chap
yes.
from the Curse City box. He's the like grave diggery type chap.
It's a bit Silent
And
Hill feel to that, hasn't it? It's that kind of
yeah,
the
Guillermo
oversized
del
weapon.
Toro too as well. I mean, I've got bits and pieces on stands and all
I
sorts
knew
to
you had
do.
quite a lot on your kind of chunk of foam. I just wondered whether you were
Yeah,
deliberately avoiding all of the rank and file ones, or
there's two reasons for that. One, because I've got to buy a load of skeleton boxes and stuff, and what I want to do is have it all ready and going, and then just I'm really tempted to do all the skeletons and the Graveguard at the same time
I would.
and
Yeah,
just slog it and do it.
you
It'll
almost
probably
have
take,
to get through the pain, don't you? Big
and then
batches, but
do
then they're done.
all the zombies in one go as well.
Yeah, I think that's a
So I'm
sensible
painting
way
my
of doing
unit
it.
fillers and characters and stuff at the moment, just to keep my hand in, keep the impetus going. But this month's been quite expensive, so I've not really had the money to go out and buy all the infantry I need. So they're waiting, and then
Fair
I'll
enough.
get some Black Knights as well, and then a Black Coach, which is going to take some conversion work actually, because I'm
Nice.
going to take all the ghouly stuff off it, i.e. the spectral horses, and I'll have 12 Black Knights. That's the plan, and they go in box of 5, so 3 boxes of 5. I'll have 3 spare. There'll be enough spare to do 2 horses for the Black
Yep.
Coach, and
Nice.
then swap the rider.
Uh-huh.
Um, just generally
Okay.
slightly
Just
despectrally it.
yes, yeah, that makes sense. I think I'd prefer it like that as well. I'm thinking about it
It's
now.
kind
I
of
think
more
it's
old
gonna look
school.
awesome.
Also, given that they're going to be back on square bases and it's probably likely to be on a slightly larger than chariot size, because that's what it used to be on. It needs to be shrunk down just to fit.
Yeah.
So that's the plan. So I'll do I have 4 big blocks of infantry, some black knights and a coach, and then we'll see where we go from there. I'll end up doing some blood knights, I'm sure, and then the banshee, maybe some ghouls as well. We'll see, because a lot of the
Nice.
infantry and stuff's quite cheap, and I don't necessarily have to overdo the vampires. So we'll see where we go for points.
Yeah, the
All
new
that to come,
ghouls are
which
nice.
we'll
There's some
discuss
nice
later.
new models from it. Luckily, there's a beautiful range of miniatures in the AOS range for them across the ghouls and the soul plate stuff. You're kind of sorted, aren't you?
Yeah, the flesh eater core stuff's really nice as well. If I ended up wanting to struggle with vampire, and the only one I'm probably not going to end up doing is blood dragons, if I'm honest, or the Larbians, because they don't. Yeah, I quite like the von Carstein kind of look. If I'm going to do wet undead rather than dry undead, I think it'll
Yes.
be the classic, von Carstein look.
I like it. I like it. I think, and you can always expand later on. Again, this is massive tangent, but if the lore ends up being where we think, where they talked about not being many, many years off um, the Chaos Invasion and the Siege of Prague, if in the future the game does well, and we're guessing that maybe they expand, and I'd love this, that
like a season
there's
2.
a second edition of the game, and in that they move the timeline forward 20 years, and they're building up to this big Chaos Invasion. Then Prague's got a whole new set of vampires. I think there's a lot of Lamian vampires within Prague, so then you could almost extend your army, couldn't you? Bring in some new characters and make it usable in a slightly different setting or something, or your arm expands with it. So
I mean,
hopefully that will happen. Hopefully that will happen, and then we'll see some of these factions that aren't in the initial run be added at version 2. We haven't even had version 1 yet, and I'm already dreaming of version 2. But hopefully, if enough people buy these miniatures when they come out and the game makes its way into that next stage, that would be really cool. Really cool, and you'll find that the people that missed out first time round will actually end up doing better than the ones, because they'll end up with more plastic stuff. It's what happened with Heresy, isn't it? If you didn't join Heresy until the second edition, there's so much easier now, so much more plastic than it was for the other way around. You'll find that the people who are the early adopters, like myself, with Bretonia and whatever they do for Tomb Kings, if there's a second edition, all the old factions come back, and then they'll be getting even more expanded ranges, and it'll be the people that with the Brett armies going, oh, I'm still using the old models. But I think, like I said to you before, you're right to pick an army that you really wanted. And while you might not get an army book, what you will get is rules to use everything that was in 8th edition, as they've said, and you've got the model range to choose from is brilliant. And the same if you're a Lizards player, you've got a better model range, and you will have a more modern and wider model range to choose from than a new returning Bretonian player is going to have, as we will cover later on. But you'll have much more new sculpts to work with as a painter. I think that's really good for you.
I'm painting what I want to paint more than anything else.
You got to for your own hobby, haven't you? There's no point in painting things you
It
don't
wouldn't
want
happen
to.
otherwise, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just wouldn't happen. So apart from that, the only thing to touch on is the new excitement, the new hotness for me is they're doing some new copies of the History of Middle-earth.
Yes.
Collins are republishing with some new covers, John Howe covers and stuff on. So the first set of which is due out next month.
Yep.
It's got the Silmarillion, Lost Tales, and then the first 2 books, I believe. And then they're going to do another few sets to finish November next year, which will be Christopher Tolkien's centenary.
Right.
Would have been his 100th birthday. So I'll be picking those up. Really, really excited about those. Don't know what else has really happened. My copy of The Hobbit arrived last time.
think so. There was definitely something Tolkien related, I think.
I got the author
There's usually a
illustrated.
Tolkien book. You've definitely got
Yeah,
it's usually 2 or 3 excellently painted miniatures and a Tolkien book, which is
them
which
hobbies.
is good. No, I don't mean that in a bad way, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
hard to remember which episode, which show from the next, which ones you did,
I
because
think I'd
the
ordered it,
patch.
but it did arrive, and it's really pretty.
Yeah,
And there's not all of the images that are available on the website show it, but like the others, the Lord of the Rings has the Sindarin down the side, and then the Silmarillion, I believe, is the same. One's red, one's green, and then this one's blue with runic dwarf runes down the spine, which is cool.
fantastic.
So yeah, really pretty. And I picked up some more art books and stuff, as you do.
As you do, as you do. Oh, lovely, lovely
I love
stuff.
I do love a bookshop, and I went to Norwich the other week, and I went looking in bookshops. As I sent you, they've got quite a militaria
Yeah, yeah,
interest over in one of them.
yes.
Had the complete uniforms of the SS in. I was like,
Yeah, sure.
look good on the
Yeah,
mantelpiece. It's certainly a conversation piece, that one,
it's
isn't it?
not a coffee table book.
No, and it's a complete set as well. That was the interesting thing. It was a complete set. I mean,
Yeah,
having one of them might just show a passing interest. I think the complete set on your mantelpiece might provoke discussion, I suppose.
yeah, it's not something I'd be purchasing, I think.
No, I
But
left it
hey ho.
where it was. But yeah, always that's another
I,
thing I've been up to
I
recently.
told you when I was in
Bookshops.
Italy, loads of the souvenir shops, the amount of Mussolini's um saluting
Yes.
that you could buy was quite surprising, to be honest with you. It's like, oh
Yeah.
wow, okay, didn't expect that.
It's a
Yeah,
funny old world full of funny
yeah.
old people. But what about your hobby?
Um, I mean, most of the time has been chipping away at my Mordheim terrain, and I put the video out Friday. This is a Sunday, so the video is doing
Looks
quite well,
brilliant.
doing all right. Had loads of fun doing it. Thank you. Loads and loads of fun doing it. Really, really, really good project. It was just a slow one. Because I had 2.5 hours of footage as well, and that wasn't the amount of time it took. It was just me recording 30 seconds or a minute of starting a particular stage, so I had some footage, and then having to cut all that down into something that told the story of what I was aiming to do, because it's not a full tutorial. There's a bit about what techniques I use, and there's a little bit of
Yeah.
talk about some of the paints, but a tutorial would have been how to paint one of the buildings, let alone how to create the whole table. So I needed to turn all that footage into something around half an hour so that people would actually watch it. But I really enjoy doing those kind of videos when they're, a bit of narrative to it, a little bit of I've done this and done that.
I see it
And
finished as well.
yes,
I
with it
mean,
and that's something I would, a year ago I probably wouldn't have done that on this channel. I'd have probably done the I'm gonna a vlog, and I know a lot of people
hmm,
watching this love my vlogs I used to do for the Napoleonic things, but I moved away from them now because it's not the most complete kind of video. And I know some people will be sad at that because they quite enjoyed my project vlog number 9, and this is what I've done. But I'll save that for these kind of chats. But yeah, a year
hmm,
or two ago, I'd have done a video of me getting all the bits, talking about what I want to do, and then another video with a little bit of an update. And what you find is that the views slowly go down over it all, and the main video, when it's all finished, such a small percentage of people see it. So I've tried to kind of resist the temptation to put a video out and actually record, save lots of footage up, finish it, and then
hmm.
show it. And it's a better video overall. It's a better product for people to watch. And I make videos, so I want people to see them at the end of the day. I'm not trying to be
It's not just
famous, so it's
that.
not, but I want people to see the whole thing. And I had loads of fun making that video, and can't wait to play some games on it. And it's there for us now. The easy bit now is making the warbands. The plan is that you and I and Jordan Sorcery is definitely going to be heading to Warhammer World at some point and playing some games, and probably get another 1 or 2 people to come along as well.
Hmm.
I'll invite a couple of other people. I don't want too many people, I suppose, because I want to make sure everyone gets enough time at the gaming table. I think you can play a
Yeah.
four-way. You can fit 4 people. You can play a 4-way
Oh
game
yeah.
anyway. That works quite well. And I need to come up with a method of what we're going to do, and maybe a full day's worth of gaming there,
There's
to
some
play a
good
mini campaign or
community
something.
resources for that. you play with slightly higher gold coin allowance, and
Yes.
much like you can with Necromunda, you can play mini. It's almost like arcade mode.
Yes.
But there's lots
Yeah.
of ways of doing that.
I will. Yeah. I'll go. Well, between us, we'll. It's probably going to be something for the new year, I imagine. But I also don't. I
I
don't.
don't know when I'm going to get my warband yet, because I empty own
Exactly.
it.
So
So I have
we'll
no
need to
idea.
talk offline about that anyway. But I'm working on some warbands at the moment. I wasn't originally going to do it, but it made so much sense to a Tomb King one, because so the people who haven't watched the video, my Bretonians for the old world, and the lore around them is going to be an area of the old world called the Border Princes, and it looks like, unless they changed it, that's where a lot of the old world will be set at launch. They seem to have shown lots of maps showing that, so it makes sense. You can kind of do whatever you want in the Border Princes. And I thought, when I made that castle, which is going to be sorry, one of my cats has joined me. If you can hear her crying. I built that castle. The idea was going to be the Bretonian Lord's castle, his principality in the Border Princes. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to set some Mordheim games in that time period in his principality? And so the map, what you see for the terrain, is the front of that, just probably a quarter of the total town, for his principality. And I don't like the idea of setting some games in that. So I'll come up with some narrative and lore around why all these war bands are in his principality, in his town. I've got some really good ideas already. I'll talk to you after the video actually about some of them, Dan, because I haven't told you all of them. But I'll come up with those ideas, and I will put together a bit of a lore video for it as well, because I thought it'd be quite fun to do. So these are all things to look forward in the future. But Tomb Kings raided the Border Princes a lot, and that's clearly what GW are going to be doing with the old world, because the Tomb Kings are in it. So, and I quite like the idea that the Tomb King army that I'm also working on, I can remove models from that to make my warband. And for those particular models, if you've seen my Tomb King painting tutorial, I'm using a slightly cobbled base, which is half sand, half cobbled, and I like the idea that they're the ethereal magic that's making them walk. It's brought the dust and sand and stuff with it, but it won't look out of place having a few models with those bases within my wider army, because they've still got sand on there as well. It just looks like parts of stone that's uncovered. Exactly.
When he disappears into sand.
Yes, yeah. It's like the idea is it will work across both. But I'm the only miniatures that I will need that will be kind of extra, I think it's acolytes. I think it's off the top of my head. I've written it down anyway, but I think it's acolytes. And I've got some Necromunda miniatures on the way to use for those. I'm going to put some skull heads on, and again, they might become unit fitters in the army. So that's an easy warband, because it's painting my army for Tomb Kings, and it will become the warband for that. And I'm doing some witch hunters, and I've got all the bits for those. Excuse me.
I can see them behind you.
You can see some of it, yeah,
hunters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was going to use, I've talked about before, I was going to use the Wilder Corpse hunters from, and I have not ordered them in the end. I realized that they weren't going to work, because I wanted to use them as the normal henchmen, and they're not equipped for that. They almost have to be the witch hunters who have the crossbows. So it made no sense. So I've actually ordered the normal guard, and I've got about 10 of those as well. So the normal new Cities of Sigmar guard, but I'm going to swap out all their heads and things and their shields and use Empire ones for those. So they're all set up, and I've got all the models for an undead warband as well, because I thought it'd be fun to paint them, and I can paint them quite quickly. Things like the skellies and the zombies and stuff I can do quite quickly. So I've got some videos on the way for each of those warbands I'm going to do, and then I will do a Bretonian. I know you mentioned some interest in doing a Bretonian one. I will do a Bretonian one in the future, but it looks like we're going to be waiting until next year for some of the models I need, because look at all those foot knights and things. So again,
well, that's the old leader foot knight. So yeah, absolutely.
Again, they'll just be coming directly out of my army, because my army is going to be based in this town, this fictional town. So I love the idea of the interwoven lore and narrative for 2 game systems. And so yeah, it's going to be a really good,
entirely different warband.
fun thing to do. Yes, you've picked something completely different.
Yeah, well, they're ordered them.
You've ordered the first part, haven't you? The first half.
The Skaven, the Eshin, sort of assassin-y ones. And I need to get hold of the other one, because that literally is the warband pretty much. along with some giant rats, which, funnily enough, I have.
So what's it
From
called?
City.
Someone may have them.
Something's Claw Pack, I think. It's the first of the two Underworld warbands
That are no longer available and go for silly money on eBay at the moment, don't they? So if anyone has them knocking around that are...
They're a little less at the minute. They've come down a bit, but it's still money. I don't... Spike Claw Swarm is the one I want.
Spike Claw Swarm. So anyone's got those sitting around in a box somewhere that doesn't need them, get in touch, because Dan may well be interested.
Yeah, I'll give you some money for them. Those two warbands, along with a little bit of conversion work, is pretty much the basis of everything I need. And then I've got Curse City Giant Rats anyway, so I can make money from that as well.
Nice.
You can make some bases and like streets and stuff.
Yes, yeah. Well, I found some. I'll show you the files I've got and printed off for the cobblestone ones. They might be useful for you. I can just print you some if you need. If you like the same ones, you often don't have to match them. You might find something else, but they're a good, fairly sort of even cobblestone base. If you can add extra bits to if you wanted to. So
yeah, I'll probably need to build them up because the underworld stuff's quite dynamic and they're usually perched on things. So
yeah, or you can add stuff to it, but it might provide you with the base to work from, that you're not having to build cobblestones and stuff. But I'll show you them, and if you want some, I'll just print you some and send them over.
Yeah, I mean the thing is with the classic Mordheim, if we end up playing it old school, is they're on the 20mm bases for the most part.
I've put mine on 25s.
Well, we could always do that, but what it does mean is most of the underworld stuff comes on like 32s and stuff, and 28.5. So I can usually cut them square and then tidy them up and put them on top of the base. So it's almost like comes with its own base topper. So we'll see. We'll come.
Yeah. That makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, but I stuck mine on 25s so it works with the old world. If they ever do re-release Mordheim, and I don't think that's going to be soon, they may, if old world goes well, they might be tempted. But I got a feeling there's definitely a market on bigger base sizes. I reckon they put them on rounds if they brought that game out again anyway.
Yeah,
if I'm honest with you.
To be honest, they've proved with Necromunda that you can do facings and stuff, because there are benefits to backstabbing and all that kind of stuff. You just mark your bases. Most people do.
The actual size doesn't really make much of a difference, but I've stuck mine on 25 just so they can work in my armies. But anyway, other than that, what have I been doing? I've been painting the Flames of War stuff. I've still got a lot to do, ready for CrackCon this next weekend, as we're so I've been attacked by a cat. I've been having a look at Block War. So Warlord gave me Block War. I did a little review video on it, but I painted up the couple of civilians you get in it. I really enjoy painting them. It's just different.
They're cool, different.
So I ordered a set of civilians. So I've got a box of those. I sit up behind me as well, along with Anderson. So I already had Dread
to do, haven't you?
I've still got Dread to do, and I bought Anderson as well. And that's it now. I'm going to sit on that amount. So I've got the gang you get in the starter. I'll have like 12 civilians. You get 2 sort of standard judges, and I've got 2 character judges. That will be all I need for the way I want to play the game for now. You know, for reproducing certain scenes from certain films, maybe in small scale. I also really like the idea of playing the role play game again, but using the Warlord miniatures. I've had a lot of fun playing that as a teen, the GW role play game. I quite like the idea of, as I say, using those miniatures to play that role play game as well. That'll be a slow kind of chip away at them, but it's really fun miniatures. So I'm doing that, and I bought Blood Bowl again. I haven't had Blood Bowl for years. It's been the latest 2 editions I hadn't bought. So we're on season 2 at the moment. Season 1 was the first edition of Blood Bowl. Apart from the first edition, which I never owned, I've owned every other edition and played every other edition. And it's a game that I kind of don't play for years and then go back to. But it's a game that Emma will play. She doesn't, said before on many podcasts, I don't know if I have on this one, but she doesn't really get fantasy, but she loves playing games, and we play loads of board games and things, and many of them are fantasy themed, but that's not why she plays them. She loves games, and we do a lot of games playing as a family. So Jacob plays games with us on sort of Friday, Saturday evenings and things. That's our kind of our downtime. And she played Blood Bowl before and loved it. really enjoy playing it. She plays it more like a sport. She plays Skaven, which is painful because they're a tier 1 team and they're very fast and they score lots and they're quite hard to play against. But she plays a throwing and running game and a maneuvering, but she really enjoys it. And I thought, well, let's get it again. Asked if she wanted to play it, and she said yes. So I bought Blood Bowl, and Jacob will play it as well. So I'm going to run the new human team, which I didn't realize were a different type of human team until I started flicking through the new rules. But I do love those models because I didn't even realize the old human team, the standard human team, are a tier 1 team as well. But these are only tier 2. These new humans, the posh ones, but they're lovely, lovely models. So I'll probably do a painting video of those at some point. But I bought it to play the game with my wife and my son, really, on a Friday or a Saturday evening. So Blood Bowl, has made its way back into the rotation. There probably won't be loads of content on the channel for it yet, but as I say, maybe a few painting videos. But I do love that game. It's always good fun. I'll never be good at it or play it competitively, but it's a really good fun game to play with good friends as a sort of it's a bit more than a beer and pretzels game, but you know what I mean, as a kind of an evening, a social kind of game. It's easy to crack out on the table. You don't need too many bets, and good fun. You ever played Blood Bowl? You ever a fan of it? Or
I have, and it is weaponized frustration. It's not my kind of game at all. I was going to try. I've got a Dark Elf Blood Bowl team I put together. Decided to play a trial game with people who shall remain nameless for the sake of their, protect the innocent and all that. Who has lizards? Who had like 5 Saurus on their starting lineup, and just ran a train through the undead army or undead team that I was lent. And the problem is, undead aren't very good at anything. So you try and do anything, you fail, and then you give the dice back, and that's the end of your go. And you're like, right, I shall just let this game happen to me rather than participate in it. And I didn't
not
enjoy
a good
it.
experience. And that seems to happen,
anyone's
doesn't it?
fault, but it's it's not for me. Although both Jay, as in Jamie Harkle-Billingham, and Ben Taylor, they're really into it at the moment. They're both bought teams and stuff, so you might find people to play with them.
Yes.
Just not me.
Just not you. I think
that's
you've got to be able to. Yeah, it's a game you've got to have a mentality of, and play with people with the same mentality of having some fun with it, or you've got to enjoy it being a bit of a crunchy. You can play it fairly competitively. That I won't do. It's for me. It's a bit of fun. I love the halfling team, and even playing it casually at home. I haven't bought those because I won't be able to play against my wife with her Skaven, because we don't argue playing, but she will play to win, because she'll play it as a game that she can win, and it's fun competitive nature between a husband and wife. And that's not going to work. Her playing Skaven against, I'm never going to be good at play enough to get so amazingly good with halflings that I could stand a chance. I mean, that's challenging enough as it is, but stand a chance of beating her Skaven. So there's no point in me running halflings against her if she's going to be playing Skaven. I might pick them up if my son's struggling with the game, which at his age he probably will. So it might be a way of balancing it, is that I get the halflings fun painting project and I get to play them against him. So that'll kind of auto level versus whatever he plays. I think he's going to start with the orcs and see how he goes. But we will see. But yeah, I know what you mean. It can be very frustrating, and you can feel like the game's happening to you rather than the other way around, and the mechanics are like that. And the only advice I can give is you just have to embrace that and laugh and almost expect that turnover to happen. And playing it in a fun way might be the way to do it. The fun way might be to play bloody halflings against goblins or something, and actually just go in with that mentality of these teams are awful, or snotlings with the pump wagon, and play it as almost a comedy thing. But yeah, it can, if you're playing against the higher tier teams and players are good, it's a game that you can play very competitively. It's designed in a way that's it's a really good set of rules. But yeah, it does lead to what could be a negative play experience if you're
the models are
very
lovely.
Good. Yeah, the models are really nice.
I've still got one sat in front of me. In fact, I really am starting to feel quite guilty about need to paint. So,
which one?
It is Force and Stout Mead. I don't know if you'll.
Oh, very nice.
as
Yes, I
people can
remember you
see.
saying.
Yeah, so he has been
Yes.
started, but I'm painting him for someone, and that's gone on for far too long, and I really ought to finish it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. God, yeah. When will I do mine? We will see. I'm hoping there's going to be a few little. When I've built the orcs and stuff, and there were extra heads and things left over.
Mm.
That's something. I mean, this is going to be a long show because this is way longer as an intro than we kind of expected. But the multi-part nature of the latest season, the season 2 starter set, it's not a beginner set in the same way. There's no push fit miniatures there. And I was surprised actually, and it shows I've only kind of looked at the game on the periphery. It's an amazing starter set though. Hardback rule book, so well presented, but it doesn't feel like a beginner's set. There's no stat card for the basic teams that are in there, and they aren't push fit miniatures. You get the full detailed new miniatures that really are multi-part and quite fiddly to put together. And you get you get a star player each and a big one for each side and referees. It's such a complete starter set. So if you're an old, it's clearly aimed at older gamers, veteran gamers rather than beginners. It's really good, really good. So
I've heard that.
Really impressed with this. Yeah. So as a veteran gamer, it's everything I'd want, full multi-part miniatures. But it did make me think, God, if I compared to the last starter set I had, where it was quite easy push fit miniatures, this isn't aimed at 12-year-olds. This is aimed at adults. But anyway, that's enough Blood Bowl talk. Let's take a little break and we'll come back and we will rabbit on about the old world. Right, we're back after that short break, and we're now going to wax. Well, I'm going to wax lyrical about Bretonnian models and the old world for a while. Hopefully, those of you that are interested in the old world will stick around for this half of the show. Dan has to put up with me yabbering on about it as well all the time, but it's going to be fun to do. So we had quite a lot. I would say it was the dominant thing for the Warhammer Day reveals. Would you? It might just be my skewed glasses towards it, but it felt like it was the main
by far the longest
thing.
section.
They left it to the end as it felt like it was
last.
it felt like it was the main thing. There was a couple of models here and there, and this was, we need to give people something solid now. It felt like that. They've been criticized.
Feels a lot more tangible now. It feels a lot more. I mean, they've shown. I think, again, we'll cover this a bit further, but the fact they're now showing new multi-part, multi-use plastic miniatures for this game.
Yes.
People are like, oh, it's less of a cash grab, or it's less of a this, less of a that, less of the other. The fact they're actually, I mean, they're making injection molding machines for this. So it shows that they are showing some investment in this. I mean, you're getting people whinging about resin, and of course you do. Not everyone can be an adult. Learn to use some tools. Crack on. It's not that scary. Forge with resin. It's actually easier than plastic, some of it.
New Forge with resin is very, very good.
It's brilliant.
I've built some stuff this week for a commission. I built a couple of heresy praetors for a commission, the new style. The cleanup was minimal, less than a plastic miniature. They're designed now to go together like a plastic miniature does in some ways. So there's sockets and plugs and things for it to go in, so it only goes in the right way. They're fully CAD designed. And you've got to be honest. The honest side of it is, yes, they're slightly more expensive. And that's,
there's no argument with
that. You'll be in charge, whether it's, I'm not saying the price is right or wrong, like everyone will have their own opinion on that, but you will be in charged for what is essentially a smaller run of those things and the extra costs that it takes to produce resin miniatures, so it costs them more per unit than it does for plastic miniatures. The outlay for plastic is high,
the same.
but yeah. Development time costs the same, but in terms of the rest of it is different. In terms of producing it, it's more labor intensive to produce resin miniatures, and they are priced accordingly.
And they've got to recoup their costs. I mean, you can have some
over a smaller amount of sales, and that's the thing, isn't it?
I mean, look at the Falcon Grav Tank, a really good example. I think it's one of the oldest still in production plastic miniatures that GW does. That remains unchanged. I think the Viper as well, unless they've changed any of that with the Wind Rider changes and all that kind of stuff. But that's probably well into its. That's massively in profit, and people talk about profits from GW, and I'm like, how many of these miniatures do you have to spend to sell to recoup all of the costs? And given that they don't actually take bank loans out, again, I think we've touched on this, and GW are quite obvious about this. They don't take loans. Everything is self-finance. So they need to get ahead of themselves. They need to recoup what they've done and some in order to develop the next bit.
Yeah.
And so, things cost, and resin is more expensive.
And the other half is that, yes, it is slightly more delicate. And that's a probably bigger consideration. But when they're chunky miniatures, you're generally okay. We're just talking about some of the finer parts. They are easier to break than plastic.
I've slapped more plastic miniatures in the last couple of years than I have Forge or resin.
But they've vastly improved, which yeah. It's not to the point where I'd be worried about owning them. We both have lots of newer resin. We have from Heresy or from Middle Earth. So we're not talking about Forge World miniatures. For those of you that are coming back to this, that aren't buying a lot of GW or Forge World models, but you have had experience with Forge World inventory from 5-10 years ago, it's different now. Very, very different.
If you were an original old school, like when it used to be Warhammer Forge before it became Forge World, when very old Forge World miniatures, they literally used to explode. If you dropped them, they would shatter. They didn't have the same resin composition. It was more like a beige color than the gray color.
Yeah. And
if you dropped it, it would just go bang, and there would just be bits everywhere. Like even solid models, not even breaking under component lines, they just explode.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing at all. Remotely, it cleans up better.
Very, very different.
It's great.
But yeah, aside from those things, what you were saying is spot on. So before we get into that more, for those of you who haven't followed along or didn't watch the reveal, or only watching because you watch us and you're not really interested, what they've done up until now, all they've done is tease a single model here and there, and we've no idea when the game was coming out. And then there's been little announcements on the style of rules, what factions are going to be out, but nothing very, very solid. So to start with, they have said early next year.
Very early, didn't they?
Yes, and the host said Roger Easter. Yeah, he said not long after. I think Eddie Eccles said something like not long after New Year or something like that. So I think most people are guessing January or February. When I saw it, I just interpreted January. Who knows? I'm going to be hoping for January.
I'm hoping for the end. Many ways.
Yeah, in many ways, it's a bad time because it's the longest payday, isn't it? People buy all their Christmas stuff and then waiting for their payday if you pay monthly or something. I quite often get most of my money coming at the end of the month, depending on when I finish jobs and things. So financially, it's probably the worst time of the year for me. But in terms of excitement for getting my hands on this stuff, I'm hoping January, and that would be amazing. So I'll be asking for lots of GW and Forge World vouchers for Christmas to help fund this. And then what they did is they were very clear that we're going to show you all of the things that are going to be in the Bretonian range at launch, which was quite a big move. And I think it was a really clever way of saying, look, this is what you're going to get. We're not mucking around here. There's enough here to create a decent army. I think we looked through the 6th edition rulebook. We were talking before we started recording. The only units you can't do from the 6th edition rulebook at launch will be the special units. So you're looking at the questing and Grail Knights, wasn't it?
Questing Knights, Grail Knights, and the Mounted Yeoman.
And the Mounted Yeoman. So they're the only models that aren't covered in this at launch.
Other than special characters.
Yes, yeah, but it's a different timeline, so I'm discounting
Green
the
Knight
special
is eternal.
characters. True. It would be interesting to see how they handle that. That would have to be a new sculpt. But what we've seen is there was already a leaked Pegasus that we've seen a frame for, and then a picture of a built model, and they made a bit of a joke about it on the stream. And I'm looking at a picture of it now. So that can be made at least 3 ways by the looks of things. So it's a character. And it can be made as the Duke, as the Baron, and a standard bearer. And I'll be putting images up all the time through this, so people know what we're talking about. So looks like it can be built in slightly different ways, a slightly different head as well. So people are going to do their own thing and do a complete mix of these, aren't they? Make up their own characters, which is probably what I'd do a bit of a mix of all 3 or something. But it looks absolutely fantastic. That's fully plastic. I'm a fan of it. It's obviously subjective. I think it's great. Really, really nicely done. I think it's modern Games Workshop figure design, but it still feels like Warhammer Fantasy. We talked a little bit earlier in the show about how detailed some of the and busy some of the AOS miniatures are. This is still detailed, lots on there, but it does feel easier to paint than some of them. It feels more still like a fantasy miniature. So that was the first thing they showed. Then they showed, which you've just talked about, really, is about the investment into multi-part plastic kits, and the Knights of the Realm on foot. These are plastic, aren't they? As far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
And they've talked about, so you can build them with board and sword, and you can build them with great axes, two-handed sort of great weapons, which look fantastic. And apparently there's loads and loads and loads of extra heads and weapons in here. And the idea is that you can then go and mix them in with the older plastic kits, which we'll come on to at the moment. So if you're building your mounted Knights of the Realm, you can mix and match the heads throughout them, which is lovely as well. Maybe some of the sword arms and stuff. And it's a full plastic kit, and you get loads of extras. So those extras are going to be very, very, very useful. So we don't know how many we're going to get in a box, but I'm going to guess it's 10.
Smart money says 10.
10, yeah. Like when you used to buy great swords or something like that. It's going to be that
both
kind of
units
kit.
they showed was 10, wasn't it? So
yes, and I imagine they're going to be elite, so you're not going to have too many in a unit. The max you'll probably need is to buy 2 boxes to use them, and we don't know what the makeup's, but I don't even know which set I want to build. Probably want to build both, but they look brilliant. I'm really, really looking forward to that. And like you said, it shows, for my part as well, I think it shows their commitment to the game, the investing that kind of money in a plastic kit. And it's not just old stuff with a couple of characters. There's new stuff there as well. So really, really like that. And then we're moving on to some of the older stuff, and they showed the what's returning. I'm doing this in the order of the article, and I'll link the article as well. But you've got your returning plastic Pegasus Knights will be back, and then you've got your returning Knights of the Realm, which are the ones I bought some off eBay, and I've been painting for my tutorials. And we knew that anyway, because they've showed it in pictures. They've already said that some of these models will be returning. Noticed it again shown in the fifth edition style lance formation, which will be really interesting to see how they manage those rules. And then you got the men-at-arms, which again is a returning kit, which I think, while it shows its age against things like this new Cities of Sigmar stuff, it does also still stand up. It's not too bad. I still quite enjoy the models. I've enjoyed painting them, and looking at them. If you wanted brand new sculpts, you could quite easily get this and a set of the new Cities of Sigmar and kit bash them and things as well. There are options there. The only thing with these, the arms are kind of from elbow down. The way they're done, it's a little bit different, but if you're going to be doing that kind of kit bashing, that kind of thing won't put you off anyway. But I think the Cities of Sigmar, you could use those for men-at-arms if you wanted to. And then of course you've got the Bowman again, which is another returning kit. So these are all the 6th edition plastics essentially that are coming back, and they do hold up all right. They're all going to be available at launch. So this is making up all your core of the army. And then there's more new stuff. So there's this really, really amazing Handmaiden of the Lady model.
Yeah, which is
really
basically a redo of the old school one, which is awesome.
Yes. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. The paint job is incredible. And that kind of white with green tints was just, really, really beautiful. So fantastic. That's, I think they said it's going to be resin. Looks like the kind of thing that will be a resin forged roll miniature in the way we described. And then the things they've already shown, which is the BSB on foot, which they gave it as a bit of a tease last week leading up to this reveal. The BSB mounted, which we've already seen a few months back. The first miniature, which was the questing knight, paladin on foot. Questing knight paladin with the great weapon. We've seen him already, so I'm guessing he could be a character that maybe you put in with your foot knights, and maybe they become questing knights. Maybe there's another way that can be built. Who knows? And then we have the Lady Elise Duchard as well, which was shown most recently before this. And then they mentioned the trebuchet. That's been recast in Forge World resin rather than the fine cast. I have a fine cast version. It's actually not too bad. And I'm going to be painting that for a tutorial soon. I think it'd be nice to get it done. Whether I need a second one, I don't know, but if I do, brilliant. I'd love to know what base size that's on.
I've just remembered one of the units we didn't think about, Grail Reliquary. You know,
yes, that's the other thing.
donkey.
So we will see. They did say there's more to come, but these are the ones that will be available at launch. And they have, in past updates, talked about some miniatures will come back in metal. So we may well find that these come back in metal. Maybe it'll be a bit like Middle Earth when they do made to orders on them as well. I can see that as a possible way of doing it.
They can't keep all of the old world armies in stock all the time. It's just not possible.
And it will frustrate people. I suppose we're a bit used to it, aren't we? Because of Middle Earth, and you want something and it's just not available, and then it comes back in made to order, and you have to hope that you've got money at the time. It's not the best for the hobbyist, but it's something we just have to accept, I suppose.
If it out, if maybe they gave us a 12-month,
they don't. Maybe, that's what they don't do, is give you a big enough kind of advice. When they announce it, they should probably give you a month's notice, so then to save your hobby dollar for the next month to pay for it.
If they do similar to what they've been doing with 40k, where you get these codexes coming out on this month, so these will be army books for the ones that they say are getting full support, at least in this version. Maybe they say, okay, this book's going to drop in this quarter. And there's going to be MTOs.
They probably won't. We might get a roadmap, actually. We might.
You never know.
Once it's,
they've got it for Heresy.
I mean, we don't know what's going to be. So as we're recording this now, it's nearly 2:00 on Sunday, the 15th. Tomorrow, the website goes live, doesn't it? The Old World website goes live. So there might be more info. There's probably going to be stuff I wish we put in this show. But the website goes live. So who knows what will be on there. But because they're doing that kind of stuff, we may well find that we end up with an Old World roadmap, which shows when things release. So something is very apparent at the moment to me is that it feels like we might just get a Bretonnian and Tomb King launch, a 2-faction launch. Even though there's 9 factions as part of the game been announced, it feels like, and I say that, and you'll get this, but I say that knowing that it's an SDS game and how small that studio is. I can't see them having been able to launch everything in one go. So it feels like it might be a 2-faction launch. I might be wrong. But I don't know how you can bring back all of the kits in one go. So we might well find over the course of the year or two, these 9 factions are introduced with their own time period. I hope, I don't know if I'll be right, I hope that the old plastic ranges that they're going to bring back for all of the at least the 9 factions will be made available for people who want to play the other factions, so they're not still having to play these 2. I don't know whether the capacity is there for that. That's my main fear for the game moving forward, is that people that want to play dwarves or Empire or High Elves, etc., Orcs and Goblins, want to do that. Some of them will be able to get stuff from the OS ranges. So that's not so much of a problem. Empire's a problem.
Can you buy a normal Orc these days? I don't think you can buy a normal Orc
you might
these days.
No, you're probably right, actually.
Because you can get,
but it's easier for some factions than others. So if you, for example, High Elves are part of the 9 factions, unless you're using proxies, and there are good options. We talked about this before as well. There's stuff you just can't get. Orcs and Goblins, you could probably build a certain kind of list, but you'll be missing some things. Empire, now all that Cities of Sigmar stuff has changed and they've removed the old stuff. If that's not, I'm hoping that some of that stuff just goes on as other factions, plastic releases at launch, so people can start building their armies if you're not a Bretonnian or a Tomb King player. I don't know whether they have the warehouse space or the capacity for that. I genuinely don't know. I hope they do that, because that will be my fear, is that some people are going to have to wait for their time in the sun and their special characters, and like we're seeing for Bretonnians now. And I'm pretty sure that they've announced that there's going to be another preview in November at one of the big US events. I would put quite a lot of money at being very similar to this, but for the Tomb Kings. That's going to be my guess. I might be wrong, but I think we'll see something very similar when we'll see the entire Tomb Kings range that's going to be available at launch, and that will be it. And then maybe in December, we will get another tease and maybe a date or something, depending if it is January, maybe we will in December. If it's not, if it's February or something, or March or something, we probably won't see much until the new year. Nice pictures of the books. Be nice to see bases go on sale. if you're
or even
listening
just
and
a
you
nod.
can do it, I know they've planned this already, so it's pointless saying it. But if you're listening, there's so many people that are really, really desperate to start rebasing and painting their armies. And if those rules are made available as some kind of ravening hordes, which they've talked about, if those rules are made available, people are going to want to start playing this game. My call to Games Workshop would be help them play this game and not stunt the excitement and momentum at launch by people not being able to get a hold of stuff. Get the base sizes out there, even if it means you lose some sales to MDF makers. Most people are going to go to a third party anyway. Get the base sizes out there. As on the community page, get the base sizes out there. Maybe now it's officially a launch game with a website, there'll actually be a proper old world tab on the community page where they put all the articles, because it's a nightmare trying to find the old development diaries. You're better off Googling it and finding them that way than you are actually searching it on the community page. You can't find them. You can never find them all in order. You should be able to now go back and look at all the, maybe they don't want the early development diaries easily found, the ones with all the cafe stuff on there. People remind people that the game was probably different in mind when they first announced it. But I honestly, if anyone with the power to do that, it'd be too late now. Get the base sizes out there, because the community will love you for it. I get the commercial reasons, maybe why not, if you want to sell your own new bases and you're going to bring bases out. Obviously 25s are existing bases anyway, but it looks like there's going to be some new base sizes. So if there are, get those lists out there in December, get people excited and rebasing miniatures over the holiday period. So when you do launch the game, you get people playing the game as early as possible, rather than just people buying a starter box or boxes, depending. There's two rumors out there at the moment, isn't there? One is a starter box. There's a rumor that was on Chapter Master Varak about there being two separate starters, which is starter armies for Tomb Kings and for Bretonnians, with some really, really interesting other rumors about what's in them. There's some cool things. So again,
some of them have proven to be reasonably accurate with the Bretonnians, so it adds a little more. I don't like stoking those fires. I don't like adding credence to rumors.
If I was going to put some money on it, I would put the money on the two separate starters based on how other rumors have matched up. They mentioned some kind of big gribbly for the Tomb Kings, which would make sense. We've just been shown I'm pointing at the screen because I'm looking at the picture. Sorry, people, you just have to excuse my stupidity of these things. We've seen the Peg Hero. You can imagine that being in a starter box. So I look at Middle Earth. I look at Middle Earth. So you're getting old sculpts in a box and a new Theoden on a horse, that kind of stuff. This rings that it could be something like that. It could be a starter box with a rule book, maybe, and
maybe
men-at-arms, bowmen, some knights on the realm. You could with foot knights. I wouldn't put the foot knights in there. I would sell that as an add-on. You want people to buy extras. It would sell the box, but I think you could put the hero on peg exclusively in that box for a couple of months. People will be buying that box because they want the rules. They want again, massive assumption, but I would put the peg in the box with the rule book and then loads of the old plastics. People would be buying that because they want to get into the game and whatever version of the Tomb Kings. And then I would be having those foot knights as a separate box of 10 because they're such a must have. If you're going to go down the Brett route, and I don't think most people would not want those as well. You can imagine. No, I don't like those. Most people, I'd say 8 out of 10 of people are going to start a Bretonnian army that way, are going to want to add that extra sales of that extra box of foot knights. And then it's adding to your basket the other heroes, the Forge World ones and things as well. So that's what I would do. And the rumors of it, I think I don't remember what's listed in the rumors, but they're out there if you want to find it. There's a few videos and a couple of blog posts around. Who knows whether they're true or not? But I think that'll be a cool world to do it. I'm excited. I just hope I can afford it because I'm doing both armies. I probably want both boxes, which will be interesting. But we'll see. I need to try and get my the stuff I've got painted now, because that'll give me a really nice head start for whenever it happens in the new year. I feel like I've got half an army done then. I can spend some time having some fun painting all the characters before I head back to the second block of troops or something, if I do it that way around. I think we've covered most of what's coming out there, and most of my kind of overall thoughts on it. I don't know if you've got anything you want to add to that, Dan.
I mean, obviously, website tomorrow. There's going to be further previews to come. They alluded to that themselves. There's still, we are currently midway through October. So if we're assuming, based on what they said, January, February time, we're still 3 months and a bit to go.
Yeah.
Plenty of time. So we shall see. We shall definitely see. I'm stoked for it. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't really have a horse in this particular race aside from a rule book.
Yeah.
And bases. I don't really need the bases. because I want to start getting started on that. But I need to buy a lot more skeletons and zombies first of all, get that sorted out. And then I don't want to get too invested. I mean, vampires, necromancers, things like that are a relatively safe bet for my list. I don't want to start getting too in wonderful just in case.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they've said there's going to be rules for everything that was in 8th, but
I think it's almost simpler for the legacy factions in some ways, because I think you will just get rules for everything that was in 8th, especially all the core units, and I think you can safely do it. I think it's more of a question. I think we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. It's more of a question for factions like Britannia, where because they're at launch, do they get a full legacy style list? Will you get everything that was in this?
this is true.
But like we talked about the Green Knight there, I don't mind if some of those things aren't in it. Some people will moan because they always do, but we're in a new timeline. So the things that don't make sense, I don't mind being missing, but they've also promised that everything that was playable in 8th edition will be playable. So how do they handle that? So we don't know if there's army books. We don't know if it's a campaign book with the rules in, with Brett's and Tomb Kings and the same. We don't know if there's going to be individual army books now, but if whatever format they put it in, I'm going to assume that the new armies that are being released, whenever it happens to be, are going to have a different kind of level of love as and when they're launched. So Tomb Kings and Bretonnians first would be the guess. From what we've seen, we've pretty much been told that. So let's assume that. And we know that there are extra rules because there's foot knights now. Is there going to be a Grail reliquary? Are there going to be questing knights, etc.? I think there probably will be rules in there, but they will be, and I think the miniatures will be handled like later on and or as a made to order. But will they do Green Knight, that kind of stuff? Whereas I think it's a lot more straightforward. So it might be a little bit like the 40k model, where everything's put out there with an index card type situation. But when you get your codex, that overrides what was free. And with Brett's and Tomb Kings, that's going to happen almost immediately. They might not even be covered in a Ravening Horde style army list.
Very true.
Unless they do that early, I don't even know if it's going to be free or not. They could charge you, because if it's going to take them, it sounds bad. It takes them years to get all of those 9 factions done. If they got a 5-year release cycle for those 9 factions, if they're not all at launch, we're making a guess here, but if they're not all at launch and there is a 5-year release cycle to get through those 9, and then at that point they decide whether there's a second edition based on sales, well, not at that point, they'll decide ahead of that, but we could be using a Ravening Hordes book for quite some time. So if you're going to be using it for some time, are they going to sell it? Or is it, because people keep talking about it being free? Are they going to sell it? Is it going to be free? I don't know. It could be a PDF. If it's a PDF, God, wouldn't it be fun to release that late December with the base sizes? That would be really, cool. Really good. Really, really good. So we will have to wait and see, I guess. And I enjoy the excitement of talking and guessing about it. I'm not stressed about it. It will be what it is. I'm quite cautious that's not to expect everything at launch. SDS is a small part of Games Workshop. This is a deal. We've talked about this a lot before. If you're expecting a full full release like Old Fantasy, you're going to be disappointed. You've got to understand that this is going to be much more like other SDS games. So, and I appreciate that if you're not a Brett player or Tomb King player, then it's not quite as exciting maybe now as it would be for others. But I do hope they make, as I said already, make the base sizes and make the some of the rules known early enough so that other people can get excited who aren't part of those. You don't hamper the launch that way. I hope they're able to do it. And I also hope that they released at least some of the core plastics for those other 9 factions early-ish as well, so that people who don't want to play these 2 factions don't feel like the game doesn't exist for them and it's just a game of Bretts versus Tomb Kings, because there is the danger of that, and because of the small part of the studio they're in and the slower release schedule they have compared to like the main studio, I could see people chucking the toys out the pram and saying, well, my army's not ready. When's it coming? That's it. We're going to get that anyway, but I just hope that there is some way. I hope they're able to mitigate those players' frustrations by re-releasing some of those out of production core plastics, so people can go and buy those. The other thing that will happen, and it's already big at the moment, is you'll just find that more and more people will go and 3D print their army, and then they won't buy them when they get round to releasing it. And that's my fear. And I don't know if there's any way around it, because this STS isn't big enough to launch it all in one go. And maybe that problem is a smaller percentage, and it's just because I 3D print myself and I listen to people and know people that 3D print, that I see that as a solution and to some things, and people won't. But I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that people invest in their armies when they come out, so that this game survives and does well, and we get future editions, and that means more plastic. We saw that with Heresy. You buy it, when you show that you want it, you get more plastic, which is essentially what we all want at the end of the day. But anyway,
yeah,
probably going around in circles.
for me, I wouldn't consider buying anything. I mean, I know that differs from some people, but I want to go to Warhammer events, as in Warhammer World. I want to go. I'm a painter. I make no argument about it. I want to go and try and pick up some glass, and there's no way I'm doing that with 3D printed model. So
yeah,
that determines my options, and it also determines my approach.
Yeah. Well, I don't need to 3D print now. I can 3D print Bretonia, and I can 3D print Tomb Kings. I'm not going to. I want to use the official GW models. I want to go to Warhammer World with my son and play games and things there. I'm lucky enough that I live close enough, and there's people around the world. That's not something that's a thing for them. So you do what suits you, but I do hope that people don't feel forced into people have always used third-party miniatures for Warhammer Fantasy more than any other game, right back in the days when I used to listen to Podhammer and Bad Dice, and the tournament scene was full of those kind of armies and people using proxies and stuff and themed things, and it was brilliant. And I don't know if that was part of the problem. I know the game didn't sell well, and there was an IP issue. There's loads of reasons why it didn't, but I do hope that doesn't just naturally become a hurdle for it to too much of a hurdle for it to overcome, because there are some really good alternatives out there that people will buy printed or print themselves. And I hope that GW are able to mitigate that enough, so enough people buy the official things. And as I say, my biggest fear for it will be how long it takes to get the core of all those 9 factions they've announced out. It doesn't have to have its own army book, because I think people are conscious enough that they have to wait for their new army book. They wait for codexes in 40k. We've only just had Tyranids and Space Marines announced, haven't we? It's going to take a while. And people, I think, will accept that. They'll moan, but they'll accept it. But my fear is that if they can't get the miniatures for one of those launch factions for a long period of time, that's my concern for them. The only concern I have for the game now, to be honest with you, because looking at what they've announced, doesn't look like just digging up an old game, does it? They've released the 6th edition miniatures, which are fine. They're absolutely passable. They're pretty good, and they still have a nice theme to them, and I like them. With enough new stuff there, that's a really nice looking army. And if they do that for each faction, that's that image of the game, what it might be, what it might look like, new rules, and each army looking updated in that way. You know what? That's really good, and probably more than I'd hoped for. My expectations have been deliberately aimed a bit lower than that, and that's more than I expected. More characters than I expected, and I definitely didn't expect those foot knights to be plastic. I thought there were going to be some Forge World resin ones. I thought they were going to be expensive, like Iron Hills or something like that. So that, for me, really, really positive. So it's now about whether they can deliver that for each faction quick enough that it keeps people interested and excited and really grows that game. Because in a couple of years' time, if all of those factions, if every of those 9 factions has got the same love there that the Bretonnians have got, and I expect the Tomb Kings will have, we will see announced in a month or so, then the game could be really in a really, really good place, really, really strong place. But it's getting there, and people realizing they've got to almost, if they've waited a long time, hang in there, because it will happen. Right.
Agreed.
I feel we've
on that note,
that's a nice, a nice natural place to end the show. Anything you want to share before we let these good people go down?
Usual, thanks very much for supporting us, commenting on the videos, etc. The engagement's been really, really awesome. Always appreciated your sort of feedback, and make sure you do go out and check Stu's most recent castle and his board build, because his inn does need naming. I'm championing the Stone Troll needs to be.
I'm going to do a poll. I'm going to do a poll for it. So yeah, you carry on. I'll tell them about that in a minute.
Yeah, but get on there, give it a look. It's really nice to, more importantly than anything else, to see something finished. The amount of hobby vlogs and stuff that die on the vine, it's nice to see something, actually watch it be done. So yeah, go give that a look, and then definitely vote on what you think, or put a suggestion for what you think his inn should be named. The more comedic, the better, because he's going to have to do it. We will insist.
Oh, we will.
Freehand all the lettering and everything.
Maybe I'll find a way to do it. It'd probably been easy to do before I stuck them on the building. I probably should have left them off, but I'm going to do a poll. The poll will probably have to be on that most people would see it would be in the community tab on YouTube. It's the place that I know everyone will have access to it.
So like and subscribe.
Yes. So like and subscribe, or you will not see that poll. So if you're watching this and you have commented on that video already with your name for the inn, you know, to find out whether you've won or not, I will announce it in a future video, either on here or probably in one of the future Mordheim themed tutorial type videos. But the poll will go up. If you want to vote for your own choice, the poll's going to go on there. So I know that out of the, I'm just gone over 9,000 subscribers now. Out of all those subscribers, I bet you if I put a poll up, 20 people will vote on it. So if you go and get involved and vote. And then if you do win, you'll get some gorgeous prizes, which is probably a couple of dice and a sticker or something like that. Nothing very, very exciting.
Because my skater got to come from somewhere.
Dan wants me to buy a well and build a well and paint it. I might get on that. Right. Anyway, thank you very much for everyone who's watched this and made it through the end, especially those of you who aren't old world curious. You may have found it slightly taxing, and maybe you've dived off before. Thank you. Go and watch all my other videos, like and subscribe and all that. Also go and check out of the Frying Pan YouTube channel. Dan did a very good review of the latest SPG magazine, a bit more in depth than the small short that I put out. So if you're a Middle Earth fan, go and check that out there. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and we will catch you soon.